All right, Darkconis, it's Cimbolic responding to your video response on the meaning of life. Yes, in my original video, I was thinking that meaning comes from our placing ourselves in broader contexts that are located or situated mostly in the world. I think, though, some people find meaning searching for inner contexts. Quite often, we do this in the world. So we look for roles, for one, your role in the family, role in society. For a lot of people, their occupation serves as meaningful to them. You know, we also have pursuits that we follow. You'd mentioned the pursuit of knowledge. We dedicate ourselves to causes too, which are external to ourselves and which are larger than ourselves. I mean, I think we're really trying to place ourselves into to be larger. And there may also be some yearning for immortality that kind of plays a role in this. But I might develop that later or not. But you had mentioned, for instance, the pursuit of knowledge, which is a pursuit. I think that we're narrative creatures. We tell ourselves stories. We create myths for ourselves, or we inherit myths. And I think a lot of our myths are just internally driven by our nature, probably. I mean, you see the similarity of myths that arise all over the world. But the pursuit of knowledge, you could view that as a hunting myth. If you're hunting for truth, for some people, to get to the subjective side of it, for some people it's a gathering myth. I mean, I've known people who really just gathered knowledge. They didn't seem to really be searching for something, but they just got lots of knowledge and sort of used it as a kind of a status ornamentation. For some people, they may be driven more by a cultivation myth. They're cultivating wisdom or cultivating themselves through knowledge. So, in a sense, we get agricultural myths, hunting myths, all sort of built into one. Um, and when I say myth, I don't mean that something is necessarily invalid. Myths are very valid. I mean, we're living myths all the time. Here, I'll demonstrate this. I'll demonstrate the fact that we're living myths all the time. The way it was demonstrated to me once. Um, this reflects on your thoughts on the monetary system. So I'm burning a dollar bill. Huh? All right. Now, some people out there watching this video have just gone through emotional trauma. Some people will be saying that I broke the law. Other people will be saying that I burned a portrait of George Washington and that is somehow sacred. Other people will be saying, oh, that's a complete waste. You could have given that money to the poor, to somebody who really needed that money. Um, and what you did was morally irresponsible. You know, and all I really did was burn a piece of paper with symbols printed on it. You know, but but people will have gone through, often many people will have gone through an emotional experience. Of course, not as emotional as they would have 20 years ago when the dollar bill was worth more in terms of what it would buy. So we tie this into inflation and your videos on the monetary system. But the fact that we go through that emotional experience based on something that's just symbolic like that shows that we really are living different myths, and the stories that arise when people watch that are remarkable. Some people now think I've broken the law. I've wasted money. I've denied something to the poor. I've taken a dollar. I've vaporized it. All the other dollar bills in the world just went up in value. So there are economic myths. There are theories. So yeah, we're driven by myths. Um, um, my objection to saying that there is a single deity that assigns us a purpose and assigns meaning to our life um, is primarily that it takes away our own search for other meaningful myths or even the creation of our own myths. Because I think we can create our own myths too, though it's rare that people do so. I think I'm not sure. I have to think about that, but it's kind of rare that people do so. We usually follow internal ones or ones given to us by others. But to say that a meaning in our lives and is given to us, assigned to us externally, all of a sudden we stop searching for other meanings and searching for other myths. myths of meaning that we can engage in, to remain engaged in the world. And I think my original video, I was talking about placing ourselves in various contexts and then engaging. And I think it's by nature of these myths, by the narratives we tell ourselves, that we engage. And when we're engaged in life, uh, it suddenly takes a long meaning, takes on meaning. Um, Meaning's an interesting thing. It's tied up with value, which is another reason that I burned the dollar bill. What we value, we pursue what we value. We try to live for things that we value, whether it's knowledge or what have you. Um, um, what's the meaning, for instance, of pleasure? Does pleasure actually have meaning? I don't think pleasure has meaning. Not the internal experience of pleasure having meaning. Um, Meaning versus and value, a sense of expanding ourselves, into the world, becoming part of something larger too, and pursuing something grand gives us a sense of meaning. It is interesting. Some people will draw from the world. The myth they're living is sort of a contemplative self, internal myth, which is really sort of a different type of myth than the ones that engage in the world. So you have people who will meditate for years, will isolate themselves and be not engaged in the world, but engaged in sort of internal self exploration, the internal landscape in the search for meaning. And truth. So that's a very interesting one too, because we can go both ways. Yeah. So in any event, just sort of to sum up, yeah, subjectivity is a lot of the meaning, but I think there is always, in a sense, an objective, or I should say, external element to these things, because the myth is a narrative, it's a story, um, it's um, it's something that we are living, So in a sense, it's got a plot, I suppose. It's got maybe characters in it. Um, that's about the story there. Uh, yeah, so I think that there are objective and subjective elements, or external and internal elements. You'd mentioned the green movement. There's a perfect example of a movement. It's to improve the world, to affect the world, impact the world, to have a larger effect for us individually, to affect the world, leave an imprint on it. And it's a cause, and people are often motivated by a cause, because a cause is greater than we are individually. So we again expand ourselves. The danger there is that we'll overinflate our egos when we pursue these things. So we have to kind of keep a balance. Um, uh, um, it's my cat making noises. She has her own myths too, mostly hunting myths, but a lot of myths around, narcissism. Pet me, feed me, feed me. So yeah, so that's kind of the story. So we're not in disagreement. We're not in disagreement. We're just sort of enhancing, I think, enhancing each other's thoughts. That's a story. Next time I'll burn a $5 bill, and it'll be even more effective. Huh? In 20 years, I'll have to burn a $20 bill. Okay, take care. Bye bye.